right. Hey guys, welcome. Happy Sunday afternoon. I am so excited to have a dear friend of mine and homeschool strategist on our show today. Welcome, Emily Bradley in the house. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, you guys, Emily and I have been friends for, oh goodness, I don't know, probably like 15 years now. We've known each other a long time. Emily is also in my mastermind group for online entrepreneurs, and she is a founder of a business called Easy Start Homeschooling, where she helps people that have never homeschooled before start homeschooling. She's also the mom of five children under, how old is your oldest? Under 12?
12.
Yeah, five children under 12. So pretty amazing. She lives here in Washington, D.C. And she is going to share with us today in response to the coronavirus and tons of people all around, the country, really around the world, schools being shut down, what we can be doing, what we should be doing. Probably, I know after talking to Emily this weekend, I had like a lot of self-induced stress immediately like lifted off my shoulders. I was like, actually, I do not need to become a homeschooling mom in like the next 12 hours because I am ill prepared to do that. So Emily, one of Emily's great strengths is she's really able to like simplify very complicated things and just tell you like these are the most important things to do. You have a little bit more time, you can maybe do this and this, and all this rest of this stuff you really like don't need to worry about. So Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
So Emily, why don't you just start by sharing with our listeners a little bit about yourself, why you have been homeschooling for over a decade now, but why you decided to start homeschooling, and then we'll jump into some strategies of how we can best navigate experience this unexpected break. Okay.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think I knew I wanted to homeschool pretty early on. It even happened before I got married and even had my own children. I had a fine public school experience. So did my husband. But when I was in high school, I got the chance to know another family online that was homeschooling, and they had a lot of kids. And I just saw how many practical things they were able to learn. They were, already apprenticing in their father's business. They were grocery shopping. They were planning meals. They were building a house for their grandparents. So I just saw just the multitude of skills they were learning while I was worried about, was I going to get into National Honor Society or things that seem kind of silly now. They were learning like real practical life things. And that made me think, maybe there's something to that homeschooling.
Yeah, that is great. And just so you guys know, Emily did go on to go to college. You have a law degree. But Emily is one of the most practical. She's a lot like my husband, actually. She can like fix anything, replace toilets, you name it. She's your woman. So she's awesome and a fantastic entrepreneur and mom. Um, so Emily, I think the first question that I want to ask you is, what does this disruption mean for my child's education? So, like Fairfax County, where we live, has already they made the call on Friday to cancel school for 4 weeks. Some I've even seen online some places have canceled school for 6 weeks, some it's 2 weeks. Like, what does this mean for our children's education?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a little bit hard to answer because each school district is so local. They're handling the situation so differently. I think in some schools, they're very organized and teachers are liaising with parents online and kids are getting work sent home with them. And then in other places, it seems almost like a free for all, like parents are just cut loose and, they don't know what to do. But I would say for starters, do not panic. I know, I personally gotten a few emails from people saying, I got to keep my child's education going. What do I do? And if you're in that category of person that you're personally panicked, I mean, a lot of people have situations with school where just being home with their kids is a hardship personally or financially due to work reasons. And that's like a whole different ball of wax. But if you are personally worried just about your child's education stopping, that is not something to be worried about. I mean, a lot of homeschooling families love the flexibility of homeschooling and just the freedom, because when mom has a baby or they move or they travel or something like that, they they don't have to, they can catch up later is what I'm saying. They can pause, slow down, and then they can catch back up.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I hope everyone is listening to this like, oh, that's such great news. Okay. So
well, I mean, I also want to say, sorry, I was just getting a message from my laptop here, like plug in. But I also want to say, I mean, we stop school for 3 months out of every year, and it's okay. That's our system in America, and we all still survive, and we're still okay, and our kids are okay. So even if summer is happening a few months early this year, they're going to recover. They're going to get it.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, so what kind of things should I be focusing on during this period?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'm just gonna try to plug in this computer. Yeah, the things that I would work on are okay. We're all good. Hopefully now it won't interrupt me again. The things that I would keep going, I always tell this to people when they're like, what subjects should I do every day with my kid when I'm homeschooling? The main things I say are, there's 3 big ones: math, reading, and I also throw handwriting in. And I like to give the example to people of thinking about what it's like as an adult when you learn something. You're gonna like read a book about it, or you watch a frontline documentary or something interesting, and you know so much information. And for several weeks or a few days or even a year, you're thinking about that, and that's kind of how it is in those realms of like history, science, literature, those type of subjects. Your brain will like get absorbed in that. And then you kind of mostly forget it. And that's okay. You kind of move on. And that's how it is with science and history. So they have the ability, we all as humans have the ability to like learn a ton and then forget it and then relearn it later. And it's okay. But math and reading and even handwriting are subjects where the learning is kind of incremental and it's building on itself. And so the same principle is really true. Like if your preschooler is like missing letter learning, and they skip for 3 or 6 months, you're still going to be able to catch up with them. But it's nice to be able to keep those increments going to keep the learning fresh.
Okay. All right. So the most important subjects, if we want to focus on anything, would be math, reading, and writing.
Yeah, if you're like, I gotta do academic work, what's the priority? I would say those are the priority.
Okay. And if you have like no experience like myself doing anything with homeschooling, what would be some resources that we could work on for our kids? Should we be doing stuff online? Um, like how do we even know where to start if the teachers aren't sending home anything? And sorry, as a side note, I know we had talked and you had said like if your kids' teachers are not sending home anything, take that as a clue that you probably don't need to be doing. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind. But if we do decide we want to do something, like what do we do in that math, reading, and handwriting category?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a huge gamut. You've got people who have preschoolers, and then you've got high school students who are, maybe a year or two from graduating. Huge, massive difference. My guess is that it's going to be pretty easy for high school students. They've got their books. You say, here, do these lessons. And if you have middle school and high schoolers, usually their lessons, especially with regard to math, they're going to be titled. And one thing I love about homeschooling is that I have the opportunity to teach my kids how to read a math textbook, which is something I never learned to do. And I think most of us are probably fearful when it comes to you can't teach math. And I actually don't teach math. But what I did teach my kids to do is read the lesson. And so, they can get along reading the lesson, but if you're not used to it and they're not used to it, it can be helpful to just Google the lesson title or look on Khan Academy. So khanacademy.org is a great resource to just explain kind of what's going on here with matrices or, factoring or different things. And they'll give you a whole little lesson, and hopefully you and your child can kind of put it together if you're in the upper maths. Basic maths, I think probably the biggest problem that kids would run into with their parents, if they're in first, second, fourth, through elementary school grades, is if they're doing a Common Core based curriculum. That can be tricky for parents to understand. It's not evil, it's just a different way of understanding the curriculum, but there's tons of resources out there. So if you're looking at kindergarten, elementary math, and you're like, I do not get this, I would kind of look up Common Core resources, and they can explain it to you with what the math book is trying to say.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's actually very validating because I have two children in elementary school, and I consider myself very good in math. And when I try to help them sometimes with their homework, I'm like, what's wrong with me? So I didn't know that about the Common Core. Okay, so that's right. And guys, we'll also link in the show notes some of these exact resources that Emily is suggesting. Okay, and then as far as online resources, Emily, where would we start with that? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents are just straight launching into an online search for how do I homeschool? Just in kind of they feel the need that they have to keep going. But what I've been telling people is actually they should really think about making their priority. I know I said that about the math and reading, and that's if you're really zoned in on academic work. But I also have been encouraging people that to focus on 4 areas that kids don't really get in school. And one of those is life skills. So, I mean, we talk about fixing a toilet. I mean, really practical life skill. Baking cookies is another one. But as you start to do these things, it kind of is almost like just this explosion of areas that when you've got your child with you and you're saying, okay, let's tackle this toilet, your mind just starts to explode. Think of different things that you're going to explain to them about how the world works, how the economy works, how, plumbing works, if that's your thing, or how, when you're making cookies, you're measuring, you're doing math, you're saying, okay, we're using a half cup. How many of these do we need if it calls for a full cup? Or, just basic life stuff. And you'll see that schooling isn't just sitting down with books, but it's really involved in everyday life. So life skills is huge. Being in nature is so important. There's so many studies that talk about the importance of being in nature and what it does, not only for you just physically and exercising, but, for your psyche. Kids, I see so many kids now, their parents are interested in homeschooling because they have problems with anxiety or bullying. But I think nature is a huge antidote to a lot of that psychological stuff kids are dealing with. Another big thing is reading aloud. A lot of times kids don't really get that time where someone's reading aloud to them, and that is a huge way that they are getting new vocabulary introduced. Your speech, your cadence, the way you put emotion into a story teaches them so much about the world. It forces their brain to exercise as their brain is imagining these scenarios in a way that being on a screen is never going to do. And also, it can be a really big relational building time with your child. And That is so, so important, before kids hit that like kind of 10-year-old mark. It is the most important thing that they feel a real emotional bond with their parents. It gives them confidence and peace. So this, I think, is a great unintentional time that families can say, "Oh, we're going to focus on some different things that are probably even more important than the worksheets that they might be doing in school."
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, and yeah, it's just thinking about that reading aloud thing. Psychologists say human's biggest need, but especially a child's, is significance and belonging. And I think that reading aloud, that relationship, it really speaks to you are significant. Like
Yeah.
you, my child, are significant in my life. It really creates that feeling of significance and belonging. So, okay, how do I keep myself and my kids from going crazy during this time?
Yeah, we maybe should have talked about this first. I mean, I think so. I get a lot of people say to me when they find out that I homeschool, especially when they find out I have 5 kids, they're like, "Oh, you're a saint, you're an angel, you're a superhero. I could never do that." And I always think to myself, "Oh, you could, you're just not used to it, And this happens to my husband and I when, say, if I leave, I have a conference or I have a meeting that takes many hours, I come back and I'm like, "You're all driving me crazy. I can't do this." Um, but being home with them every day, you get into your rhythms, you get into your routines, and you kind of get a handle on it, And you have to also think that your kids have been in an environment. If they're at school, we can all remember back that the teacher is there saying, "Okay, now we will do this. Now take out your notebooks. Now put away your notebooks. Now you go to the reading station." There's a system, there's a routine in place. And kids, for better or worse, are used to having their whole day laid out for them. Now, I would not recommend that you try to replicate that. That sounds exhausting to me. So it just may take some time. Whenever I counsel families who are starting to homeschool, we always advise takes time to de-school, and that just means kids need to get used to not being in school. And so now we're having a massive de-schooling experiment where all these kids are coming home and they're just getting used to someone not telling them what to do at every moment of the day. But if you can kind of stick with it, you will find that they will start to self motivate. And you might say, "Okay, here are the blocks." I know you're involved in Montessori. You're saying you're offering the activity and saying, "Here are your options. You have 2 things. You can choose how to use your time," and slowly they'll get the hang of motivating themselves, managing their own time, and it'll become easier for you and them.
Yeah. Okay, that's really great. And I know, Emily, you and I, we had also, I've heard you talk about this situation and just we want to encourage all the parents listening. Like this is hard. No one was expecting it. This is going to be hard for our kids, but this is also going to be hard for us. So my personality has a tendency to be like, all right, I'm gonna learn how to homeschool and do all this. But just to I have to rein myself in and recognize I will probably give my kids and myself and for sure my husband a nervous breakdown if I just have this unrealistic expectation that it takes time to be school. It's gonna take time for the whole family to adjust to whatever routine um, you have. So Emily, I have another question. So we're gonna have our family meeting. I've done I've done an episode about family meetings. We do ours on Sunday nights. How much kind of buy-in do you try to give your kids as far as I would like to in tonight's family meeting us to set up kind of a new suggested routine that we might try for the next few weeks. I have a feeling in my mind I'm like you should do all your responsibilities, practice violin, whatever homework we decide to do like in the morning, and then you can go out and play. Um, but I think my kids will not want to do that. How much buy-in do you suggest like you give your kids in setting up a new routine, or you as a parent be like, no, really like this is what the family used to do?
Sometimes it's trial and error. Obviously with an older child, part of the process of being a good parent is when they're younger, you have more boundaries that you decide. And as they grow older, you are slowly bringing them into this process where hopefully by the end, they are completely deciding their own boundaries. And so it depends on where you are on that spectrum and what your kids' ages are. But there can be some trial and error. One thing I would say to people, in case you don't know this, um, home, homeschooling takes almost no time at all. So when kids go to school, they're doing schoolwork for 6 hours. I actually talked to a mom who started homeschooling, and she was like on her first or second day, and she was like, I just can't do it. After 4 hours, they were just hating life. And I was like, oh no, please don't do that. It takes, there's a story about this principal who had to stay home with his daughter because she had some sickness or surgery. And he got the schoolwork from the school and did it. And it took 6 minutes a day. Now, I think she was in like first grade, but he realized, oh my goodness. And I think they started homeschooling because they said, this is a huge time waste. And so if you are doing work with your kid, you've got some work, 2 hours is the absolute max that I would give to like a kid in elementary school and it doesn't even need to be that long. My 9-year-old daughter does less than an hour of schoolwork a day. So almost, a lot of her reading or her learning is just her free reading. I provide good books, playing, being outside, we do things. So don't stress about that.
Okay, that's great. And it's good to keep in mind, like maybe it's trial and error, and let's figure out. We'll try this week, and maybe that routine didn't work. Okay, so Emily, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, no, I just want to encourage people that even if they just say we're going to start summer early, it is going to be okay. And if you have older kids, something to really think about is if college is looming, there are great resources online for them to do SAT prep. So Khan Academy has an SAT prep free. Modernstates.org has great test prep to take CLEP or AP tests, which are ways that high school kids or adults can earn college credit for very cheap and transfer that credit to the college whenever they go. This is a great time to say, okay, look, we have a month. If they're not getting a lot of schoolwork that they have to keep up with, or even if they are, they can go online, prep, take a test, prep for their AP test, prep and take a CLEP test, and boom, have 3 hours of college credit, under their belt. It's a really great and productive way to use this time.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, well, so and then Emily, I want to talk just real quick. You tell us a little bit about your Easy Start Homeschool program in case. So I just want to encourage listeners to be kind of like open to this. This is almost like a beta testing for all of us. Like maybe we'll discover we actually really like homeschooling. And Emily, I think you would be a great resource if we stumble into this discovery. What is it that you do with your coaching and consulting?
Yeah. So I have two main offerings that I do right now. One is a really affordable 5-day just discovery kind of course or challenge. So it's called Discover Homeschooling Challenge. And over 5 days, I kind of answer a lot of questions, present homeschooling and how it kind of works, and help people who are trying to decide, is this for me? Figure out if it's for them. And then I also have more of a kind of a homeschool starting coaching thing called the Nitty Gritty Homeschool course, where over 6 weeks, I kind of walk with you as you pick out your curriculum, do your withdrawal from school, register, and just it's a bit of hand holding through that whole process and getting you set up. But I would say if you have been on the fence about homeschooling, this is a great experiment. It's a great time to try deschooling and just seeing if you really notice. So, most of the people who start homeschooling now, their child is not thriving in school. And if you have been questioning, is my child being bullied? Does my child have anxiety? Is there some other issue going on? This is a great time for you to see. And if you observe your child really thriving with more one on one time with you, just being out of the school environment, that's a big clue to you that maybe homeschooling is something you should really think about.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, at the end, I'm gonna have people like you share with us where people can connect with you more. But guys, Emily's program is really good. Like it is super awesome. So Emily, thank you for sharing that. Now, I always close out my interviews with a final 5 questions. So, what is one of your favorite books and why?
I've got a lot of favorites, but one I read probably 6 years ago still sticks with me. All the Light We Cannot See. Did you read it?
Yeah, I read it because at my baby shower, you and Pastor Donna talked about, and it's probably my favorite fiction book. Yeah,
It's
phenomenal.
and I tend to favor fiction books because I think there's like a truth and a beauty in fiction that is sometimes even hard to communicate with fact. And I think the most important thing that we can do as humans and, in educating our children is to teach them and teach ourselves to value beauty and truth, in the world that God created and to recognize beauty. But it's kind of a skill that you have to do. And so I appreciated that book just for its beauty and the way it, could so eloquently capture life. So,
guys, if you haven't read that book, it is. I listened to it on audio. It was so good. So what if any podcasts are you listening to? I don't know. Do you listen to podcasts?
I want to be a person who listens to podcasts. I never feel that I have time. If I'm listening to anything, it's educational, unfortunately. If I'm in the car, I'm with the kids, and I'm listening to their little stuff they're memorizing or audiobooks with them.
Yeah. Okay, so that's okay. You get a pass on that one. What is the best business advice you ever heard?
Oh, it's got to be done is better than perfect. Yeah, that has to be it. It's scary going to business. I mean, if you have a lot of entrepreneurs listening, it's exhausting going against the grain, and it's the same in homeschooling. Anytime you choose a path that is not the mainstream, it can be very tiring. Explaining yourself to people, feeling like you're not, run of the mill. Your life isn't run of the mill. But done is better than perfect. Getting it out there. I'm kind of a perfectionist. So
that's good. Yeah. Okay. If you could live anywhere in the world, you can take your family, your community, where would you live?
Paris. I don't think it needs explanation. Although I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of conversations with my husband, and I have to admit that I think anywhere you go on vacation seems awesome, but when your real life and your responsibilities are there too, maybe it's not as good as it seems.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. And where do you want to be? What do you want to be doing 5 years?
Oh, great question. 5 years from now, I want to be successfully graduating my son from high school and having done at least 2 years worth of college credit. Yeah, I want to have no diapers in my house. I know these are all kind of silly things. No, it's hard to imagine. I'd love to be just kind of doing what I am now. What I really dream about doing is mentoring other moms in homeschooling and then being able to train homeschooling moms to do the same, to be able to. I love the homeschooling life. It is so fun. There's so much flexibility and freedom. I just feel like even though it seems like the opposite would be true, I feel like I have a lot of time to just raise my kids in a relaxed environment. And I see so many people who I think would really benefit from that. And I just would love to keep, spreading the word and teaching people that you really can do it and it can be really rewarding.
Awesome. That's so great. Well, Emily, thank you so much. It was so great to hang out with you. If people want to connect with you more, where can they find you?
Yeah, people can always email me personally at emily@easystarthomeschool.com. Easystarthomeschool.com. I'm also on Facebook, easy to find.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Emily. Have a great afternoon.
You're welcome.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.